Hi there, seniors. Mrs. Thompson here. This presentation is designed to really go through the nuts and bolts of getting through the four-year college application process, what you need to do in SCOIR, what you need to do in the various applications, how to get your stuff from you and from us to the colleges that you're applying to so that you can get those acceptances in. Our hope is that if you watch this, you can pause as you go through, jot down your questions, and really be prepared for those individual meetings that you'll be having with your counselors this fall, and have those meetings be as productive and as meaningful as possible, especially because so many of you have not really had the ability to do that one-on-one time in the past year or year and a half. So this is a great time for you to be doing that at the beginning of the process here this year. So let's get going. Okay, so one of the misconceptions I've heard is that I don't think I need to use SCOIR. Not true. You have to use SCOIR. You can't avoid it if you are applying to any 2- or 4-year college. What SCOIR is really doing is giving us one place to process all of your documents for you, no matter which application you're using. Is the main communication source between you and your counselor throughout the entire process, and will also allow you to track the documents that your counselor sent out, so you can see for yourself when things have left and what has gone to each school. So do you apply to colleges in SCOIR? No. College applications are separate from SCOIR. SCOIR is where we keep the information. College applications are the information that actually goes from you to the college. Colleges do not see SCOIR. So there are several different types of applications, and you'll need to decide for each school that you're applying to which is the best one for you to use. Most students do use the common application for a big chunk of their schools, but not every school accepts the common application. Pro tip, if you haven't heard it from me already, if you're just applying to Rutgers and there's no other reason for you to use the coalition application, don't use it just for Rutgers. The Rutgers University application is much, much easier. Also, note that many schools accept many different types of applications, so you want to do as few application forms as possible. All right, so things to do, like now, nothing I'm showing in front of you is anything new. These are all things we've been going over since last spring and all through the summer. Most of you have already done the first thing on this list and had that parent complete the release transcript release form in Genesis. There's only a few that are outstanding. I've been reaching out to you, so if you haven't heard from me, you might be in good shape. That FERPA waiver in SCOIR, some of you have done it, some of you haven't. It should probably be popping up as soon as you log into SCOIR, and it'll be asking about whether or not you waive or don't waive permission to potentially see letters of recommendation at the school you attend. It looks something like this. When you click on the tile, we strongly recommend that you grant the waiver so that you waive your right to look at the confidential letters of recommendation at some point down the road. Note that you'll also need to do the same thing on the Common App, and there as well, it's the top one, I waive my rights. And there's a little bit of explanation here in bold as to why that's recommended, and if you have questions, you can always ask me about it. If you haven't already done so, get those activities section done in SCOIR, get the brag sheet done in SCOIR, get that parent point of view done in SCOIR. Those 3 things need to be done no later than 10 school days before your first deadline. Your counselor is using that information to write your letter of recommendation. I know that many of them have already started writing letters, and just today uploaded the first couple and started to send things off to colleges. So we're getting started on our side. Also, if you did not last year, give 2 teachers, not recommenders, but 2 other teachers a link to do a teacher to counselor feedback form. You can give them that link, and they will also provide additional information for your counselor letter of recommendation. Finally, if you asked 2 other teachers to write actual letters of recommendations for you last year, but you never put those requests in SCOIR, now is the time to do it. And I'll show you where to click to do it as we keep going. You've got to get it in SCOIR or your teacher is not writing for you, because out of sight, out of mind, even if they agreed to do it. That stuff is all one and done. Once you do it, it is off your plate. So get that stuff done. Next thing you really need to be doing is getting your colleges on the correct lists in SCOIR. At this point, September of your senior year, I'm really hoping that you can get most of your schools onto this list, the one that I've got in orange, the applying list. These are schools that you're planning to apply to. And it is important that you get those schools onto that list as soon as possible so that you're communicating with your school counselor as well as your teachers about where you're applying and when your deadlines are. You might still have some other schools here on the following list, maybe schools you're not quite sure of yet. And some of you have already started to move them over to the applied list because you've already hit submit for some schools, and that's great. Now, just to review, when we go into SCOIR and we go to My Colleges, I prefer this view. This is the way you can kind of see everything. So if you're not seeing this view and you're seeing things as a list, hit this little button here, and that'll get you so that you can see this view. So if you've got schools on following and you want to move them to applied, just drag them over. And if you've got schools here and you want to move them there, just drag them over. Super easy. You can also use the 3 dots if you want. If they're not here and you want to add them, just click Add a College, start typing it, it'll pop up. And you can have any single one of these places as an entry point to do it wherever you want. If you never requested those teacher letters of recommendation, the place to go is application documents right here. You'll click there and it is very self-explanatory as to what you need to do. If you are a free and reduced lunch student and eligible to apply for a fee waiver, the place to find that is also here in application documents. And if you never completed that ED agreement, even though you were prompted, you can always get back to it here. But we'll talk about that more in a second. So this is what we're looking at. All right. So first thing you're going to need to know when you want to move a school from either following to applying or applying to applied is how you're applying to that school, whether you're applying early decision, early action, regular decision. Different schools have different options, so you won't see all of those options for every school. But just a reminder, early decision is the binding one. So if you get into a school early decision, you're going to that school, so it's game over. You can't apply to a whole bunch of schools, early decision, only one. Is it right for you? It's not right for most students, but here are some of the factors that you should be really thinking about if you're weighing the idea of early decision. All of these things should be applying to you. You really, really need to be able to give specific, clear, authentic reasons as to why that college is a great fit for you in order to maximize any benefit at all of applying early decision. Also, you really need to make sure that you work those financial details out and that you can pay your estimated family contribution, because a college is very unlikely to give you more financial aid than they think you need. So they're going to be planning on you paying at least that estimated family contribution. If that's not a possibility, that's not a great fit for you. Also, you might want to check the data here. I've got a link for you to check out for a lot of schools what the ED admit rates are versus some of the regular admit rates are. Remember that recruited athletes, who are over here, are also likely falling into that data, as well as perhaps some legacy students as well. So the better plan for most is early action. I really like those schools that submit decisions back to you, release their decisions in the December timeframe. Those are great because they can really help to reduce your stress because you've hopefully gotten in someplace, but also give you some great feedback as to where you're at this point in the process. You very commonly, students get in some schools then and then decide, you know what, I'm going to shave 3 more schools off my regular decision list because why bother? I already got into some places I'm thrilled with. Other times students realize that perhaps they are in a different place than they thought they were, and they need to add some other schools that are less competitive in the regular decision process. So it can give you great feedback in time to do some other things for regular decision. Do note that some schools are more competitive in regular decision, so I really, really encourage pretty much everyone to apply early action to schools like Penn State, Purdue, and University of Maryland in particular. When is early decision not a great plan for you? If we are moving into the later parts of October and you are really feeling like your application is nowhere close to done, it is probably best to not apply early action there, or to focus and chop off a few of the schools off your early action list. You really still want to be able to put your best foot forward. Also, if you are a student who would benefit from having your mid-year senior grades factored into your admission decision. For many schools, regular decision might be a better plan for you. Those mid-year grades for our students come out in February. What happens is the transcript updates with your mid-year grade, and it does also update the cumulative GPA, but keep in mind that is not going to move very much. Those senior year grades are only factored in at half value for half the credit value, so they tend to not have a whole lot of impact on your GPA. What is much more impactful at that point is the actual courses you are taking and the grade you are earning in them. That is really where colleges are putting their focus as they are looking at your senior year grade, not any minute changes of cumulative GPA at that point. So regular decision, those deadlines are more around January. And you hear back kind of in March or early April. Rolling decisions, those are great schools to start applying to even now. Don't get real tempted to wait and apply in like February. Things do get more competitive as you go. And you can hear back in a couple of weeks. So a good example is Pitt. I was just on a call with them the other day, and they were really encouraging students to get those in. They're already sending out decisions. But if you're able to get in the next couple of weeks, you could have a decision in early November potentially, which is great. So when you try to move one of those schools over in SCOIR, you're going to see these different options pop up. The reason you want to know is because this is what's going to communicate to your counselor and your teachers when your deadlines are. So it's important that you select the right one. You can change it if you change your mind. By the time we make it from applying to applied, you can change it. But please, please, please try not to move up the deadline. Do not give us any sneaky last-minute surprises that, oops, my deadline isn't in January, it's actually in 2 days. That's not going to go in your favor. Also, for some of these options, you do need to let us know how you're applying, and it may ask for an ID. The most common one that people ask me about is the Common App and the Common App ID. If you log into your Common App, this is the CAID that is in the upper right corner of the screen. You could just paste it in here and it'll stay there so that for future schools, it's already there. Okay, so now once you have indicated that you are applying to a school, note that you can go ahead and click on the little tile here, and it kind of gives a little shout out here. Up at the top here is where you can change your settings and view a scattergram. But if you scroll down below that, you'll see this My College checklist for each school. So it's specific for each school. You can use it if you like. You are not obligated to do that, but you can use it if you like to keep track of the different things that you've submitted. You might also want to double check the school website just to make sure that you've got the most current information about what needs to be sent in. But if you scroll down below that, you'll see this other section, application document status. This is where you're going to be able to see kind of what's loaded up for you. You can't click on it, so you can't read them, but you'll see what's up there. And you'll also be able to see when they have been sent. So this will start populating with a date. And then we can all kind of track what dates are down here in terms of, when you moved things into different columns, if somebody else moved things for you. So what are the different parts of the application? Who sends them? Here's a quick snapshot of it. Basically, students, you're sending the application, the essay, your test scores, if you're including them, and also for any school that requires self-reported grades. That stuff is on you. The stuff that we send, but you have to request it properly, is the transcript, the secondary school report, letters of recommendation, and those things get sent only to the schools that want that information. So we won't send it to schools that don't want it. So Rutgers gets nothing from the high school, for instance, because they don't want any of it and they don't accept any of it. Other schools, Fairfield University, they get all of these things up here at the top. When do they get them? They get them when you move a college from the applying list to the applied list. But key point, remember I said you cannot sneaky change a date? You need to make sure that each of your schools makes that applying list at least 10 school days before the deadline. It's really, really easy because you can literally do it right now. Put them on applying for every single school that you're definitely applying to. It's not always a big deal to move an additional school later. What is a big deal, though, is changing that first deadline. And why is that? Because your teachers, your counselors, we all organize our work by that deadline date and your application plans. So there's a lot of you. This is a big school. We want to get everyone's stuff out on time, give everyone the time and effort and great letter that they deserve. And so we prioritize based on who's ready to apply sooner rather than later. So if your stuff is, if you're ready to send your stuff out, we want to have your stuff ready to go. But if you try to sneak a new deadline in within 10 days, we might not be able to get that done well. For those of you that have all regular decision enrolling schools that you're applying sooner, maybe applying kind of November, December, or October, just communicate with your teachers or your counselor what your plans are so they know kind of where to prioritize you in the list. And we do ask that you really, really be honest with us. We don't want people spending an hour or two of their time to write a letter that you may not need because you've decided that you're not ready to apply to schools, that you're not applying to four-year schools at all. So we want to put our effort in the best places possible. So students, we talked about the application that you need to complete. So you're going to do that outside application, that Common App or Coalition app. This is the type of information that you'll be expected to put on that application. And you know what, guys? Look at the stuff that's on here. This is all stuff you know. So students, you should be the ones completing the application, not your parents. Can they check it over? Sure, they can. But guys, if you don't know what your address is, we got bigger problems. If we don't know the academic information or what your own GPA is, you got bigger problems, and we can help you find it. But please, please, please do it yourself and ask for support if you need it, but do it. So here's all the kind of stuff that you guys are doing. Here's the stuff that you all ask. I think not a day goes by that I don't get these questions, and I'll be sending this out to you probably 10 more times over the next couple of months. This is the frequently requested information. These things right here, these top four, are on the Education tab of the Common App. That is the most frequent one I get questions about. Best source for you right here. I've got my Common Application Guide. It is linked in your SCOIR account, in your SCOIR Drive. You'll find when you go to your profile page, there's a link there for my drive. It's like the top one. It's the Common Application Help Guide. I literally go through every single section of the Common App with all the questions you're going to have about that section. So if you keep that up while you're working, you're going to be able to literally get right through everything, even on a Saturday, and you won't have to email me 7 times on a Saturday because you're going to find it all right there. The other really helpful one is this one, the SCOIR Guide to the Common App. That is great for early decision. It's great for teacher recommendations, and it's great for the fee waiver process because it shows you exactly what you need to click with screenshots for each one of those circumstances. So you don't screw it up because you've got it right in front of your face. The one other big question I've been getting lately is when students are working on your SCOIRs, and guys, it's great you're working on them. It's super early. They're not even due yet. It's great that you're doing it. For most schools, you don't need to put your middle school grades in there. And why is that? Because the colleges are looking for things that you're getting high school credit for, and we in New Jersey don't give high school credit for middle school courses. So if you took Algebra 1 in middle school, you didn't get credit for it. That being said, yeah, I know it's a college requirement, but when you started in Algebra 2 here at the high school, they'd go ahead and make the assumption that you took those prerequisite courses. So it's okay, generally to leave those off for almost every school. So here's the overall process, just kind of the gist of things. On the Common App, there is no one big submit button. You submit individually to each individual college. Works the same on the Coalition. On both of those applications, I strongly recommend you add all your colleges to the list first on the Common App. And yes, they need to be listed in SCOIR and in the Common App. So you list them on Common App. The reason I say that is because when you get to that writing tab of the Common App, you'll be able to see which schools are you going to use your essay. It'll just put them into 2 columns for you so you can see. And also it'll automatically let you know then which schools are going to require courses and grades on Common App. That is not a surprise you want at 11 o'clock on deadline day, as I had a student have last year. So do it ahead of time so you know what your workload looks like. Once you get all the sections of the Common App tab done, you're also going to find you've got to go in and do those school-specific questions that are in the My Colleges section. You can work on one at a time, so they're very independent there. Each school you individually submit from the My Colleges tab. Also on that tab, be looking for those supplemental essays. That's where you're going to choose your test optional and early decision. It's also the place you have to assign recommenders for each school. Note, no email addresses. Do not put in your teacher's email addresses. Do not put in your counselor's email addresses there. We are going to send everything through SCOIR. Yes, it will be okay. You also then pay and submit. I recommend always double checking on the front page, that dashboard page of the Common App, because you'll see there the confirmation, and I believe it's in green, that you submitted. And also note that for some schools, there's a double submit because some schools have a separate writing supplement submit. And so that's the place I find that if people were checking that dashboard, they would have caught that they neglected to submit their writing supplement. Once you're done, make sure you've moved that college to the applied column on SCOIR so that your school counselor can send out your transcript and your school report and all those other things. Make sure, if you did not do it already, that you submit official SAT and ACT scores from the testing agencies. Ideally, you want to do that a couple of weeks ahead of time to make sure that it's there by the deadline, but not a bad time to double check and make sure that it went. If it is one of the schools that is a self-reported grades school, a SCOIR school, or whatever system they use, good idea to go ahead and get on that right away so that that doesn't slip your mind. And I'll be doing help sessions for that kind of thing throughout the fall as well. And then finally, you always want to make sure that after you apply, you start checking that school website and the application portal to make sure everything arrives. And you probably want to give it about 2 weeks or so after we send the stuff for it all to hit your account there. I've got directions in here for coalition application, but it is very much the same and more or less the same process as well for if you're using another outside application, perhaps a school-specific one or some type of regional application like Apply Texas or the UC application or something like that. So some pro tips here for you. Set aside some time to work on your college apps every week. Try not to leave it all to the very last minute. It's not going to get the time and attention and best quality work if you do that. So set aside time, schedule it into your calendar. It's okay to do that. Another good idea can be to set aside weekly time to go over things with your parents. That can help you get some guidance and directions and set some goals, but also kind of compartmentalize things a little bit so that you've got one time that you're talking about it every week, and then maybe we don't have to talk about it on a daily basis every single night at dinner. So that can really work for families. Also, I recommend creating some type of document somewhere to keep track of all these details, like what's been sent, what you requested, when you did it. Here's a sample document you can use if you want to. That's fine. I don't care if you use paper. I don't care what you do. Also created some type of document where you keep track of the logins and passwords. Nothing is less helpful than when you come in to meet with me or your counselor and we say, okay, log into your Common App and you don't even know what your password is, or to some other application. So if you know that, jot that stuff down someplace, and guys, create your own password. Don't let your parents do it, because when you're sitting in here, we're wasting like 15 minutes while you're texting back and forth with a parent just to get a password. That's a huge waste of time. You guys need to take care of this stuff. We're going to give you tons of resources. Make sure you're using them and make sure you're seeking help. I know there's a lot of you, and so, we're not mind readers. We don't know when you're really struggling. We will try to reach out. Make sure that you're checking your email from us, because I reach out to students if I feel like it's kind of, weird that I haven't seen anything happening from you. But if you don't reach back out, I can't help you. Also, ask other parents and your parents, other adults in your life for help. Friends who are super organized can also be helpful. Come when we do some of the after school stuff in terms of, kind of help sessions. I find actually students really love the ability to help each other and just kind of work on things together in a, lower stress environment. I've got some great tips for you for success, but a lot of them really come to the first two, which is communicating, reading your emails. Our goal is to help you all and get you through this process, but I can't come to your house. I'm not going to come to your class and sit right next to you and help you do everything. But we're going to keep in touch with you when we ask you to do the same with us. So here are some other great tips to really help you. A lot of them really just come down to organization and follow through, and having a systematic way to do that. And so now is the really great time for you to get those skills, because you're going to need them again in college anyway. So this is really just kind of setting you up not only for a successful college application experience, but a super successful college experience as well. So that's all I've got. If you do find that your parents, one thing, if you do find your parents are, kind of looking for something to do, you can task them to kind of work on this financial aid stuff and get started on those deadlines there. And financial aid applications like the FAFSA and the CSS, they open up on October 1st. That will keep them occupied while you are working on your college stuff, applications. So that stuff is available to them. We do shift gears to scholarship a little bit later in the process. I start releasing some different kinds of senior scholarships. And then we've got a ton of resources for you. Where you can get that help. And, we encourage you to try to look at some of those things first before you reach out, and then absolutely reach out. But the reason I encourage you to reach out to look at these resources first is because honestly, a lot of times you can get your answers there faster than we can get around to answering that email from you. A lot of you know that I try to be pretty fast on getting back to you, but you can go to a video tutorial on YouTube and find out how to request an outside recommender faster than I can write that back to you. So use your resources, communicate with us, and we are super excited to get you through the process.